welcome to have you all here. And we have a great program tonight with the three Democratic county attorney candidates for Missoula County. I'm going to turn the program over to Willis Curdy, who's going to moderate our panel. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it. Good evening. I'm Willis Curdy. I'm a member of the program committee for the Missoula County Democratic Central Committee and also a member of the executive board, as is Dave and other members in the audience of the executive board. We have conducted a number of these forums throughout the year, the mayoral and city council forums. We've had great response from the audiences at all times with their respect towards the candidates and the things that each candidate has said. That said, we will do this for about an hour. We will begin with an introduction from each one of the candidates. They'll be asked to give a 2-minute introduction and 3 reasons why are they running for the county attorney position. Following that, right in front of you, Mary Gray will have a placard. It says 30 seconds and stop. We request that all the participants honor that request. And we will continue after that time with questions from the audience. And each candidate will have a 2-minute time period to answer those questions. We will rotate amongst the 3 who answers each question first. So that one person isn't stuck with answering questions at the same time, or all the time. So anyway, let's see, I think that's about it. Dave Kendall will be collecting little slips where if anyone has a chance to answer or ask a question, pass them to the aisles. Dave will pick them up. You'll bring them up to me and we'll ask the questions, go from there. Okay? Any questions from the panel? No. Okay, there being none, we'll start with Mr. Van Witten, and he will introduce himself, and in 2 minutes he will explain why he is running and give 3 reasons why he wants the job.
Okay. Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity for being here. This is a terrific forum and opportunity to introduce ourselves, and I appreciate it. My name is Josh Van Wettering. I am from here in Missoula, Montana. I am running, in essence, for county attorney because I think I'm at a point in my career when I have something I can really offer to the county attorney's office. I have been a lawyer for coming up on 21 years. I was a prosecutor for 15 of those years. I was a prosecutor in 3 different county attorney's offices around Montana and for 10 years for the federal government. Since that time, I've been in private practice for 6 years. I handle a variety of criminal defense cases as well as civil cases on both plaintiff and defense side. I've handled cases in the multi-million-dollar range civilly as well as defended complex litigation against the federal government. I teach part-time at the law school. I have sat occasionally as Justice of the Peace, Acting Justice of the Peace, and in city court. And I've also served on local boards, including the president of the board of Clark Fork School and Missoula Children's Museum. So I think with that varied career is why I think I am running for county attorney. Given the problems in the county attorney's office right now, or what we hear publicly about the problems, I think it is time for, thank you, I think it's time for a fresh set of eyes, a new look, someone who is experienced in criminal law and civil law who can lead the office into the future, and I think I'm that person.
Okay, thank you. Kirsten Pabst.
Thank you, Will. My name is Kirsten Pabst, and I'm running for county attorney because Missoula County needs my skills right now. I have been a criminal attorney now for 20 years. I've done over 200 trials. I have a 99% success rate. More importantly than that, though, I have a way with people. I have been a leader in the law enforcement community, and I'm really excited to work back in the county attorney's office and get back into public service. I'm really honored to have my whole family here. It's so rare to have my whole family. My parents, Arlene and Wayne Hagan, Gabe, my son, who goes to MSU, Emma, my daughter, and her fiance, Brian, and then Finn, and my dear husband, Sean Pabst. I have the experience to take this office in a new direction. I have the leadership, but really I have the vision. I have the big picture aspect as well as the detail aspect. And so I really think it's important to have somebody in that office with real world experience. Most people know me that I'm a mom to 4 kids, that I'm a trial attorney, manager and teacher. Not very many people know that I'm a survivor of domestic violence. People who know me know that I am a strong and decisive woman. I'm also an artist, and I really like climbing big mountains with my dad. We're due for another one this summer. I was a single mom. I worked hard all the way through law school and college to get me where I'm at. And I know the value of hard work. The current office, as Mr. Van der Wettering pointed out, is in a bit of a state of disarray. This community is divided. But at the end of the day, what we all really want is to feel safe in our homes and safe in our community. When a criminal defendant breaches that safety, we want to know that there's a competent and responsive and compassionate system in place to take care of us and to take care of our families.
Thank you. Jason Marks.
Evening, folks. My name's Jason Marks. I was born and raised here in Missoula, went away for law school, but when I came back, I started out my legal career at the Public Defender's Office here in town. I then came over to the County Attorney's Office and have been serving there ever since. I'm running for Missoula County Attorney because I can and will make the County Attorney's Office an institution that the people in the community are proud of, that they can stand behind. One of the things that I think my opponents don't realize is that we've been doing a lot. There are a lot of changes that have gone on even just since Kirsten left the office. And as the person who's there on the ground doing the work, I'm in the position where I know what we've done, what we need to do, and where we need to go. There's no question the office has become bogged down in kind of a morass of unnecessary litigation. As county attorney, I can lead us out of that and lead us forward into the future in a way that's positive and productive and serves the interest of the Missoula community.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, the first question will be, again, a 2-minute response from each candidate. We'll begin with Ms. Pabst. And the question is, what steps will you take to improve equality for Native Americans involved in the justice system in Missoula County? Oh, sorry, Sterling. What steps will you take to improve equality for Native Americans involved in the justice system in Missoula County?
Well, the response to Native Americans is going to be the same response that we have to all of the victims that, through no fault of their own, come into contact with the criminal justice system. We need to implement a system in which we are mindful of the fact that victims, Native American or otherwise, are experiencing trauma. They come to us at the very worst point in their lives. They are looking to us for some leadership. That leadership starts at the top, and that the attitudes that promote that kind of compassion for victims and Native Americans starts at the top. People come into the system and they want to know that they're taken care of. What steps can I specifically take to make that happen? You come to the table of cooperation, you come to the table of compromise. You get people out in the community to bring ideas to you and you engage in an ongoing dialogue. Really what we need most in that office at this point is to listen. We need to acknowledge that we can do a better job. And how do we know that we can do a better job? How do we know how to do a better job? We listen. And we listen with the idea that we are going to implement some of the ideas that we get from the community at large.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Marks?
The key with any issue is this being no different, is to work together to resolve the problem. Kirsten's absolutely right that communication is key. inequality comes in many forms, and there's an issue of, inequality or perceived inequality in how people are treated in the justice system. And I think part of the key to that is communication. We need to talk to victims, regardless of the background, from the beginning. Work with them to be sure that they're comfortable in what our office is doing and how their case is being handled. This is key with any minority group that feels marginalized and doesn't feel that they're heard or that the people in the office care. And I think that as county attorney, what I would see our office doing is continuing the work we're doing to improve communication and to improve our interaction with victims and with everyone in the community to resolve these problems.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Marks. Mr. Van Wetter?
Thank you. All victims, of course, needed to be treated with respect and their uniqueness is honored. I don't think it's quite as simple as saying that we're going to treat Native Americans victims the same way we treat everybody else, even if we intend to treat them all very well. And in my experience as an assistant U.S. attorney, I've had ample opportunity to prosecute cases from Indian country. Native Americans face unique challenges in majority society, and as county attorney, I will be ready to meet those challenges, whether it be by trying to hire people with a Native American background, partnering with people at the university to make sure that the staff all understands the cultural challenges that Native Americans face, to make sure that victims advocates are aware of Native American challenges, perhaps to have Native Americans in the victim's office. I don't think it's quite as simple, especially in Missoula, Montana, where we have a tribe just to the north of us, a reservation just to the north of us, to say we're going to treat everybody well. We will, of course, try to do that, bend over backwards to do that. But one way to do that is to acknowledge the cultural differences around us. And if I'm county attorney, we'll do everything that we possibly can, not only to acknowledge those cultural differences, but to honor them and respect them and to include them in how our system works.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next question. In a recent decision by Judge McLean, he criticized the county attorney's office for its efforts at going after a party, consistently going after a party in Missoula County. What would you do, or how would you make reforms within the county attorney's office to, I think the question would say, badger or to maybe improve the function of that office?
Well, I'm certainly familiar with the decision you're referring to, and I think it addresses what I see as kind of a broader issue on the civil side of the county attorney's office. For what were probably very good reasons, I think historically the current county attorney has taken a very hands-off approach to both the civil and criminal departments and really let the department head run the department. And sometimes that's worked out well, sometimes not so well. As county attorney, I think the key to dealing with situations like this is to take a much more active and hands-on role in oversight of what's going on. We want situations like this to be headed off before it comes to a situation where you have a district court judge issuing an opinion like this. Litigation should always be the last resort, and I think as county attorney, that is something I would strive to implement, is the oversight necessary to ensure that litigation is in fact the last resort that the county uses to resolve an issue.
Okay, Mr. Van Wetter?
Thank you. I agree that litigation necessarily needs to be the last resort, and leadership is where it starts. In fact, it seems on both sides of the office, the criminal and civil side, there's the ship is off course. There's a need for additional control over what's happening on both the criminal and civil sides. If I'm elected, I will exercise that control. We will not litigate against citizens in the county attorney's office unless we absolutely have to, if I'm elected. One way I will make sure that we don't is I will personally be making the decision about whether or not we're going to litigate or having a hand in that decision before we pursue any litigation. And I will personally be trying to settle every case we can before we enter into litigation on the civil side. The county attorney's office, in my opinion, should exist legally to enforce civil laws only when it has to. We should be serving the public by helping the public obey the laws. When people have development plans or when they have building plans that they're trying to succeed in, when they're trying to sell certain parcels and obey the state law, which can be very confusing and frankly in some places full of holes and unanswered questions, it should be the job of the county attorney's office to help those citizens understand the law and help them follow the law in their effort to succeed at what they're doing. If I'm elected county attorney, I will make sure that's what we're doing.
Okay, thank you. Kirsten?
More than oversight is necessary in a situation like this. Missoula County needs to make a commitment to less bureaucracy and more help for people who deserve it. The toll that this case and others like it, and I would submit that's just a snapshot of what is almost an epidemic in Missoula County right now, but the toll that this case has taken on these people is far greater than any money that could ever be taken away from them. They've lost business, they've suffered health consequences, they've suffered personal consequences, and Missoula County is responsible for that, and that's what Judge McLean said. If Missoula County has the kind of money where it can afford to pay these types of penalties, attorney's fees, sometimes $100,000, sometimes $25,000, if we have the kind of resources that we can just spend picking on people like the Millers, then we need to take those dollars and translate them onto the other side of the office where obviously some services are needed. More than oversight is necessary. We need to make that commitment to lessen the bureaucracy.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, and we'll begin with you, Mr. Van de Wetteren, is what steps would you take to further prevent sexual assault and violence against women in our community?
Well, I will take a number of steps to try and reduce the amount of violence against women in our community. And I will say at the outset, Missoula has been called the rape capital of the country or the world or something like that. I don't buy that. I don't believe that's true. I think we have a very serious problem with rape and sexual assault, as does probably every other university town in our country. Just because every other university town has the same problem, though, doesn't mean that we should be complacent, go along with the program and say we're doing just as well as everybody else. We must do better. I want to see Missoula be at the cutting edge. I want to see Missoula be the best place in the country for pursuing sexual assault crimes, and there are a bunch of ways to do it. The first thing we need to do is attack the problem that the United States Department of Justice has identified. I will personally take control of sexual assault cases if I'm elected. I will personally try a certain percentage of them, and I will oversee all of the prosecutions. We need to partner with the police on sexual assaults. I will establish task forces that meet on a regular basis, like weekly or every other week, to discuss all the sexual assault cases that are coming in so that we can handle them in a uniform manner, with prosecutors on board from the beginning. I will expect the police to be involved with us, and I have every confidence that they want to be involved with us all the way through to the end. We need to partner on these issues. I will seek funding to hire another person in the office to make sure that victims are notified of what's going on. I will partner with the crime victim advocates to make sure they are substantial and good advocates with us so we understand when people are upset and we can address their upset. And I will also reach out to the community, because we don't solve sexual assaults in our community simply by prosecutions. We need community leadership. I'm prepared to offer that by going out to the community and working to end sexual assault all over.
Okay, thank you. Kirsten?
I have been a member of the Missoula Family Violence Council since 1993 with a commitment to ending domestic and sexual violence against women and children in this community. I've got some specific nuts and bolts things that I'm going to do to address this challenge. First of all, I'm going to assemble a community oversight committee consisting of victims, advocates, counselors, law enforcement, and other interested partners to facilitate an independent and objective review of the county attorney's procedures in handling violent and sexual crimes. Second, I'm going to create a position for an in-house victim witness coordinator to serve as the point person for victims and facilitate communication with attorneys, with law enforcement, etc. I will employ an in-house investigator to serve as a law enforcement and public relations liaison and work with victims, witnesses, and attorneys to build stronger cases for prosecution. We're going to screen cases well, and we're going to prosecute the cases that we can win and hold offenders accountable. Finally, I will designate 3 specialists in the office as violent and sexual crime specialists and take whatever steps are necessary to make sure that they receive state-of-the-art training. That training is out there. I've worked with the National District Attorneys Association now for about 16 years. That training is out there. It's just a matter of priorities and choices of sending people to the appropriate trainings. I was working with the Department of Justice back in 2012, and I made these recommendations to them at this time. And I stand by them. I think that we need to do those things, and we'll start addressing the problem along with the commitment.
Okay.
The nature of our jobs as prosecutors is that we come into the picture after the crime has been committed. What we need to do is to ensure as best we can that we successfully prosecute offenders so that they aren't out there reoffending and continuing to make new victims in our community. The people in our office work extremely hard to successfully prosecute these cases, but there's no question that there are things we could do better. That should be the goal of any agency in any office, is to always find a way to do things better. We do need more resources. We need more money for training. We need more staff. We need more attorneys to deal with the caseload so that we can we're doing everything we possibly can to prosecute these crimes. And that, as county attorney, is what I would like to see happen. I think that this approach of maybe more investigators or victim witness coordinator is something that can, is certainly something that should be discussed as to how those would help. The key is to do everything we can and to get the funding to do everything we can. And as county attorney, I can absolutely commit to zealously advocating to the county commissioners to provide the funding we need and that the DOJ has indicated we need.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Patch, we'll begin with you. A few years ago, Missoula passed a resolution asserting that law enforcement should give less attention to marijuana possession. What is your position?
My position on Initiative 2 is that it has been repealed by the legislature. We have a really unique system of government compared to some of the other criminal justice systems in the world, and the separation of powers clearly make the legislative branch the branch responsible for creating new laws. We've also have the initiative and the referendum process in there, but as the enforcement division, the enforcement branch of government, the county attorney's job is to prosecute the laws as they are written, as they are currently written. So my position on that is I don't think the county attorney should create or enforce law as we believe it should be written, but as it is actually there. I'm committed to upholding the Montana Constitution and the Bill of Rights, regardless of what I think they should be. Montana law currently says that possession of less than 60 grams of marijuana is a crime. It's a misdemeanor, and If and when our legislature decides to follow the paths of Colorado or Washington, we'll respond and adapt accordingly.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Marks?
I absolutely agree that misdemeanor marijuana should be the lowest priority in the office. I voted for Initiative 2. I don't agree with the fact it was repealed, but that's, I guess, water under the bridge at this point. The reality is we deal with staggering caseloads in the county attorney's office. For the last year, I've been operating at over 100 open felony cases. Decisions have to be made about where resources are allocated. And this is an area where leadership is needed and those decisions need to be made. And I do not think that there is a problem with making misdemeanor marijuana cases a low priority. That being said, I think people need to be aware that driving under the influence of marijuana is a serious problem. A lot of the misdemeanor marijuana cases we see come in conjunction with someone driving under the influence of marijuana. We have vehicular homicide cases that have arisen from that. It's not something that should be ignored or, I guess, condoned, but just someone not doing anything else and they have a pipe on them, that should not be a priority for our office.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Van Wyk?
Thank you. Mr. Marks is right. There are a lot of cases, you can't do everything. Priorities have to be set. It's one of the reasons part of my campaign is to say sexual assault cases will be a priority. It's not just an empty word. It means that we'll put them front and center. Marijuana cases will not be a priority. They are appropriately the lowest priority. I thought Initiative 2 was really pretty good. I thought it was well vetted. I know it was based on models from elsewhere. It was relatively benign. It didn't have, as I recall, a punishment component of any kind. It was an expression of the will of the people. I encourage expressions of the will of the people. I want to hear what the voters of Missoula County think. I want to know what the voters of Missoula County think our priorities should be. It is, as always, a separation of powers issues in that it's up to the county attorney to decide. And if I'm elected, I will be the one to decide. But the county attorney works for the people. I want to work for the people. I don't want to just run off and do my own thing. So if the people think marijuana should be a low priority, that happens to coincide with exactly what I believe, so that one's easy. But even if the people think something else should be a low priority, I want to hear about it. So I will have an open ear to the public. I will have a quarterly open house where people can come and tell me what they think the priorities should be. I welcome community input and look forward to hearing about it.
Okay, thank you. Now, there are a couple questions to deal with this issue, so I'm going to maybe kind of combine a couple of them. And Mr. Marks, this is yours to begin with. Will you continue to support the current county attorney's efforts to battle the Department of Justice, both in attitude and seeking future county funds, or will you suspend this action?
Well, I think when it comes to attitude, anyone that knows me knows that I approach things maybe a little bit differently than the current county attorney does, maybe a little bit different temperament. I think that the probably first thing the new county attorney should do is resolve this litigation with the Department of Justice. It's not serving anyone's interests to have this hanging out there using tax dollars and distracting from the work we are doing and the work we need to do. This is something that should be settled. When the Department of Justice sent their letter suggesting a resolution, the reality is we had already made most of the changes they were proposing. Where the changes we haven't made are the ones that involve money, training, new staff, that sort of thing. I disagree with the approach of saying we need to be spending the money on litigation with the Department of Justice rather than spending money on addressing these issues and improving our office. And I think that is the approach that needs to be taken to resolve this and to put this behind us and move on.
Okay, thank you. Josh?
Thank you. I've known Fred for a long time. I remember when I first came to Missoula County, or came back to Missoula, started working as a deputy county attorney. I watched how hard he worked in the state legislature. I watched as was newly married, I had a baby on the way. I watched him leave his family a whole lot of times to go work hard on behalf of everyone, and I know him to be a tireless and dedicated public servant. And one of the difficulties of this campaign is that I really disagree with what he's doing now. I think he's made some bad mistakes with respect to handling the DOJ, and I would do everything I could to get it back on track. It's not quite as simple as saying, would you just agree or disagree with the DOJ, because there are a lot of parts. I disagree with the decision to pursue litigation against the DOJ before the DOJ has come after us. The way to solve the problem with the DOJ, I think, is to look at the underlying issues and say, how did we get here with these sexual assault issues, and how do we do better? Let's correct what's gone wrong, get back on track, put Missoula at the cutting edge of handling sexual assault issues, and hopefully that placates the DOJ, and I would want the DOJ to be part of that. If they're willing to come in and share their resources, I worked for the DOJ for 10 years. It is a tremendous organization. They have a whole lot to offer. I sure don't want to be in a fight with them. It may be, in the end, if we have no other choice, then we have to be in a fight with them. I'm prepared to do that. I'm optimistic, though, that we can get the problem solved with their help, maybe with the help of the state AG's office, and reach some kind of agreement on both the current litigation and any possible pending litigation that will allow us to move forward and solve the real problem, and that's how do we handle sexual assaults.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we can't wait for the federal judge's decision to start addressing the issue of how to deliver better services to victims of sexual and violent crimes in Missoula County. Jurisdictional disputes, and I'm sure my law enforcement friends will back me on this, are nothing new to our experience. In fact, for decades, probably centuries, the state government's been battling the federal government over various jurisdictional and turf issues. However, it's not so important as to how we got to this particular fight with the DOJ, as it's important to look at the underlying issue of how do we deliver better services and how do we get out of it fast? How do we take those litigation dollars and translate them into direct services dollars? And that would be my first mission when I take office as the county attorney, is to get out of that litigation as quickly as possible, get as much help financially and otherwise from the DOJ as possible, and backtrack a little bit so that we're not committed to spending an indefinite amount of money over an indefinite period of time.
Okay, thank you. I think you're up first.
Okay.
Okay. The next question deals with an issue that's come before the legislature the last several sessions. And the question is, what is your opinion on the death penalty?
I think the death penalty is bad policy. I don't think it works. I certainly don't think it's a deterrent. If I were a legislator, I would undoubtedly vote against it. I don't think it's useful. I just don't think it serves any purpose. It is, however, a law on the books, so I cannot say that I would never ask for it. I can imagine a case so heinous that I may well ask for the death penalty or seek the death penalty. So the answer is I am for and against it both. I could ask for it if I had to. I would avoid it at every cost. I wouldn't want to because I don't think it's smart, but I can't absolutely rule it out.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Marks. Oh, excuse me, Kirsten, I'm getting out of order.
You're fine.
The chair is out of order, the form's out of order.
I've had a lot of homicide cases over my career in criminal law. None of those cases have qualified for death penalty as a punishment. So I've not been in a situation where I had to make the determination of whether or not the state was going to take the life of another human being. That being said, there are certain situations where it would be appropriate if you're dealing with someone whose guilt is certain and who presents such a risk that we know that they continue to be a harm to women or children or other community members, such as, for example, Joseph Duncan comes to mind. I have not had an opportunity to have to make that decision, but it certainly would be within the realm of possibility if elected as the county attorney. I have to be prepared for that.
Okay, thank you.
I've actually ended up discussing this a lot with my colleagues in law enforcement and fellow prosecutors in social settings. And where I come down on it is I absolutely do not think the death penalty should be on the books. We've had too many people that have been convicted and had their convictions overturned based on new evidence, that they were exonerated, they were innocent. Some of those people have been on death row. We don't know who the state or a state may have executed that was in fact innocent. No matter how certain guilt looks, death is something that we cannot undo. If somebody's sentenced to life without parole, they're not going to be out in the street. They're not a threat to the community. And 40 years down the road, if some new fancy technology proves they didn't do the crime, the state can take steps to mitigate the wrong that has been done to them. We can't do that if they're dead.
Okay, thank you. And Kirsten, next question. Have you ever testified on behalf of an individual accused of sexual assault at a University of Montana hearing? What is your opinion of the propriety of doing that as a prosecutor?
I think I know what you're getting at. I have not testified actually on behalf of anyone. I was asked to come and testify about the process, and yes, I did. I went and there was a young man who was accused of sexual assault, and his attorney, who happens to be sitting next to me on my left, asked me to come and explain to the university court basically some of the standards of proof, some of the issues involving the investigation. The university up to that point had not been interested at all in the actual investigation, in what the witnesses had said, and so I brought that investigation because the police department didn't want they didn't want to get involved in the process. So just in the interest of educating them on how it works and providing some information that had been gathered by detectives in the Missoula Police Department, I did provide that information.
Okay, thank you.
I've never testified in a university proceeding of any kind. I guess I'm not familiar with all the ins and outs of the situation Kirsten's referencing, but I guess personally, I feel that my job as a prosecutor is to make the determination about whether or not we should file criminal charges on the case, and my role kind of ends there. I don't know that I would get involved in a university proceeding. So I'll leave it at that.
I have never testified about such a hearing, but I have invited a prosecutor to testify. Perhaps be sitting to my right. I wouldn't have invited her if I thought it was wrong, and I don't think it was wrong. The ins and outs are protected by confidentiality, so neither one of us can discuss them. But I think it was appropriate. I think it's a case-by-case decision. I don't think it was a bad decision in that case, and I wouldn't have asked if I thought it was.
Okay, Jason, this is yours. Okay, to begin with, how do you see, or what do you see the role of the press in the county attorney's office?
Well, the way I think most people in the community get their information is through the press. I think it is important for the county attorney to be as open and forthright with the press as we can be, so that the public has as much information as they can about what their institutions and elected officials are doing. That being said, there are limits on what we can talk about, which I know sometimes really frustrate my friends in the media. There is a lot of things we do, especially on the criminal side, that are covered by Montana's Confidential Criminal Justice Information Act and the constitutional guarantees of privacy. So we can't necessarily explain to people everything that's going on because we're not allowed to do so. But within what we can do, I think it's important for the county attorney to do everything possible to communicate openly and honestly with the media so that all of you folks know what's going on in the office.
Okay, thank you.
My turn, right? All right, I'm getting the hang of it, I think. Just as I want to be open to what the community has to say to me and to the office, I want to be very open as I can be with the media and with the public about why we're making the decisions we're making, in a general sense. Jason is correct that the Confidential Criminal Justice Act restricts a lot of what you can say, to say nothing of the fact that the courts restrict a lot of what we can say while a case is pending. That said, I will be open to the media at every opportunity, and I hope the media will come to me to ask questions, because the county attorney's office does some of the most important things we do in our whole government. You know, we have the authority in the county attorney's office to start the process that takes away someone's liberty. In the most extreme examples, we have the authority to start the process to take away someone's life. I hope the media is interested. I hope the public is interested, because I very much want the public, through the media, and the media to understand why we make the decisions we do. So I've said that I'd have a quarterly open house for anybody in the community who wants to come in and talk about the general issues. I will stand by that. I will always be open to the media when they want to ask questions. I may not be able to answer them all, but I will always hear the questions and do the best I can with answering them.
Okay, thank you.
We're currently in a public trust crisis in Missoula County right now. That crisis, that challenge can be met in large part through transparency. People, if they understand, if they participate, if they get to be part of some of these decisions, are much more invested in government, and the trust is built and it strengthens the process for everyone. Some of the ideas that I had to encourage transparency included launching a web-based police report program, so that some of those records that are public by statute but that people don't realize they have access to could be accessed online quickly and easily. I think that the county attorney should post their business and their public meetings online similarly. So what Mr. Van der Wettering was saying, people have a right to know what's going on, and if they don't know, and if they're told it's secret, then they question that, and we lose that trust, and we need to start regaining that trust. I also think we must implement in-office liaison, somebody whose job it is to answer questions from the media and from the public. Working in that office all those years, those questions come in multiple times a day, and right now most of those people are turned away. Some of them have their questions answered, but we need that liaison, somebody who can provide consistent, organized, and truthful answers to those questions that come in. We need to regain that trust.
Okay, thank you. I know a number of you have not had a chance to read the candidates' responses online. I'm going to take the opportunity to ask one of those questions, and that is, and this is for you, Josh, is what is your philosophy concerning the Baxter decision? And for you who don't know, it's the aid in dying decision made or handed down by Montana court a few years ago.
I had the opportunity to come down here and listen to Dr. Kress a few months ago talk about the aid and dying issue. I found it very, very interesting, and I have had a chance to read Baxter. I'm certainly supportive of Baxter. Of course, as always, we'll always apply the law. And for those of you who don't know, the Baxter decision is really very narrowly tailored. I believe the plaintiffs were seeking to have a right found within the Montana Constitution that gives a person a right under the Montana Constitution to control his own death. The court declined to hold that there was such a right, but the court did say that the consent defense is available to physicians who prescribe drugs to someone who is terminally ill and then uses those drugs to take his own life. You know, I'm probably like, I'm a Montanan, right? We're all Montanans here. I don't want to die in a hospital bed. I don't want to die with a bunch of tubes and wires hooked up to me. I realized a couple of years ago when I was back in the middle of Bob Marshall, broke my foot about 1.5 miles out of camp and thought, oh my God, I'm going to be barefoot. I decided, you know, that's how I want to go. I want to be barefoot. I want someone, that guy right over there, to throw me on a horse, take me back to the Bob Marshall and leave me there. So, you know, there are few things more precious than your relationship with your physician, how you're going to decide the great decisions of your own life, like how you're going to die. So I'm very supportive of the Baxter decision. I'm very supportive of the whole idea of aid in dying, and supportive of physicians who treat their patients with dignity and honor in that respect.
Okay, thank you.
I too am personally a very strong proponent of compassionate choices and dignity in dying, and would support the Baxter decision, and would not prosecute a physician who assisted in helping somebody die with dignity, and as long as they qualified under the statute. It's important.
I'll go ahead and echo what Kirsten and Josh have said. I absolutely agree that a person should have the ability to decide how they want to deal with the end of their life. And I think that is something that's governed by personal autonomy and something that we as Montanans should respect. And I absolutely would not prosecute a doctor who was helping a terminally ill patient die. I just can't imagine a situation where that would be appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Kirsten, for you, next question is, have you ever been in a professional or personal conflict with the current staff of the county attorney's office? And if you win, how will you work to avoid some type of retaliation or retaliation against staff in the county attorney's office?
First of all, we are all professionals. We have all worked together for years. That office is filled with people who are dedicated, talented public servants, including Mr. Marks sitting here to my right. I have absolute respect for the people who work there, who have committed their lives to public service in this way. We've all got a job to do. When I get in there, we'll push up our sleeves and we're going to get to work.
There have certainly been instances where I've had disagreements with my colleagues. I don't think we've ever had any trouble working those out. I'm having one with Fred right now. We'll work it out. That's what you need to do in the office. And I foresee absolutely no difficulties working and supervising people in the office going forward.
Thank you.
And I've had no conflicts with anybody in the office. I've handled cases against probably just about all the criminal deputies. I think I know most or all of the civil deputies. We've always been able to do it perfectly fine. I've been to trial against Ms. Boylan on 2 or 3 occasions, and it didn't always work out with the result that my client wanted, but we always had a very good working relationship. I have some of the people are my former students. I have no reason to think that I won't be able to continue to get along with all of them in the office as I always have.
Okay. The moderator is going to take the liberty to kind of amend the rules here just a minute. I'm going to ask a yes or no question, and you have 30 seconds to answer the question, okay? Okay. I don't think it's going to be something that's going to require a lot of elaboration. So, and I think, Jason, you're next. Okay, was a defense attorney, in the Jordan Johnson case, was a defense attorney correct in his letter to the editor saying that another well-known Missoulian tainted the jury pool in the case?
So could you repeat that question?
A defense attorney, was a defense attorney correct in his letter to the editor saying that another well-known, very visible Missoulian tainted the jury pool in the Jordan Johnson case?
I'm sorry, but I can't give you a yes or no answer on that. The answer is I don't know because I was not involved in that case at all and did not sit through any jury selection and have no idea what jurors that came into that trial thought of anything.
I'm not sure I can give you a yes or no either. If that's, I don't recall a particular letter like that. I do recall Pat Williams making comments, and I believe there are accusations that he tainted the jury pool with his opinions about what was happening in our community. And I don't believe that's correct. I don't believe the jury pool was tainted in any way.
Dealing with the media is always an issue in any trial, and as we all know, that was the trial that received international attention. And so, as a trial attorney, you're always trying to mediate some of those things that are going out there in the media. You don't have a lot of control over that. That being said, I don't think that this is actually going to take us forward. This isn't. It's not constructive to getting us where we need to go. Moving forward, we need to look towards how are we going to better deliver services to victims? How are we going to better cooperate with law enforcement agencies? How are we going to better make commitments to some of our colleagues in the civil arena?
Okay, and we'll wrap it up with the last question. I know you're all looking for the last question here. Anyway, this will be a 1-minute response. And how can the voters of Missoula County be assured that once elected, you will remain dedicated and committed to your position? And Mr. Van der Weyden, you're first.
I am running for a 4-year term. I am committed to serving a 4-year term. I will do everything I can to be entirely open. As I've said, I want to be open to hearing what the community wants to say. And if that means someone's going to come in and say, I don't think you're being dedicated enough, I want to hear about it. Where am I falling down? Because I think one of the problems that we've had is an inability so far to look at what's going on. That's why I think as someone from outside the office, I'm the right choice. I don't have my ego wrapped up in this. I will commit myself to solving problems as they come up. And one way to do that is to be open to hearing them when people show up at the door and saying, we're having a problem.
Absolutely, my commitment would remain to the office. And if anyone questioned that, I would say, you look at my life, look at my work, look at my career. I have been committed to helping victims of sexual and domestic violence since 1993. I worked my way as a single parent through law school and through college. I understand what it means to have to work hard, and I'm no stranger to working hard. I happily take that on, and I have done that in the past. I will continue to do that. I am the same person I always have been, and I look forward to bringing some of that to the office again.
Okay, Jason?
My entire legal career has been committed to public service. I've never done anything else. That wouldn't change in taking the office of county attorney. I care deeply about the office, about the work we do, about the people in the office, and about the community of Missoula. And there is no doubt in my mind that that commitment would carry on for as long as the people of Missoula chose to have me.
Okay, thank you. I want to thank the audience tonight. I know some of the questions were rather controversial. I know some of the answers could be considered to be quite controversial. This is an open forum for folks to get their whatever's bugging them off their chest, and I appreciate everybody's consideration and cooperation. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over to our chair for a few last words.
So I thank you for sitting through this very interesting forum. And I'm very proud as a Democrat to have 3 excellent candidates here for the candidate office of county attorney. So please join me in thanking them. one last thing I want to tell you, that the most important thing, if you can take away one thing from tonight, is June 3rd. That is the date of the primary. That's when these three candidates will be, one of them will be elected, and please vote. Thank you very much.